Mr. Drew, does Petra Drew currently reside at this address?
Yes, that's my wife.
Is everything okay, officer?
We need to speak with her, sir. It'd be best inside.
Come in, I'll get her.
There are moments in a marriage when everything you thought was true gets pulled out from under you. For Callum Drew, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon when two police officers knocked on his front door and asked to speak with his wife. He had no idea that conversation would end his marriage and explain the last 4 years of his life. Before we go any further, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this is your first time here, hit subscribe and like the video. Stories like this one are why this channel exists. Callum was 38 years old, a civil engineer who built bridges for a living. The irony of that would hit him later. He was methodical, patient, the kind of man who read contracts twice and never made a decision without thinking it through. He believed in doing things right. He believed in his wife. Petra Drew was the kind of woman people noticed, not because she was loud but because she was composed. She had a warmth that made strangers trust her quickly. She had been a pharmaceutical sales rep when they met. Organized, well-spoken, always had an answer ready. Callum had loved that about her. Later he would understand it differently. They had been married for 6 years. Together for 8. They owned a home in a quiet suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. 2 cars. A dog named Biscuit. A life that looked, from every angle, completely ordinary. But ordinary things can hide extraordinary lies. Callum and Petra had met at a work conference in Cincinnati. He had been presenting a project. She had been there representing her company. They ended up at the same dinner table, and by the end of the night, he had her number. He proposed 2 years later at a small restaurant they both liked. Nothing extravagant. Petra had said she didn't want extravagant. She wanted real. That word, real, would stay with Callum for a long time after everything fell apart. Their early years were good. Genuinely good. They traveled when they could. They argued sometimes, the way all couples do, mostly about small things. Who forgot to call the plumber? Whether they were saving enough. Normal friction. Nothing that felt like a warning sign. Petra left her sales job about 3 years into the marriage. She told Callum that travel was wearing her out and she wanted to try something different. She started doing freelance consulting work, she said. Helping small healthcare companies with compliance documentation. The hours were flexible. The pay, she told him, was inconsistent but decent. Callum didn't question it much. He was deep into a major highway project at the time, working long hours. He trusted her. That was the foundation they had built, or the foundation he thought they had built. But looking back, the signs were there. Small ones. Easy to explain away. Petra's phone was always face down. She said it was a habit. She sometimes stepped outside to take calls, telling him it was a client who needed privacy. There were weeks where she seemed distracted, and then weeks where she was almost too attentive, as if she was compensating for something. Once, Callum noticed a second email account open on her laptop. When he asked about it, she said it was for a specific client project and closed the tab calmly. No hesitation. No visible discomfort. That was the thing about Petra. She never panicked. Whatever was happening inside her, she kept it behind a wall that Callum could never quite see over. He told himself he was overthinking. He reminded himself that he trusted her. He went back to work, back to his projects, back to the life they had built together. And for a while that was enough. What would you have done in Callum's position? When small things feel off but nothing is provably wrong, do you speak up or do you let it go? It's a question most people in long relationships have faced at least once. The answer Callum chose was silence. And that silence gave Petra 4 more years. Callum and Petra had met at a work conference in Cincinnati. He had been presenting a project. She had been there representing her company. They ended up at the same dinner table, and by the end of the night, he had her number. He proposed 2 years later at a small restaurant they both liked. Nothing extravagant. Petra had said she didn't want extravagant. She wanted real. That word, real, would stay with Callum for a long time after everything fell apart. Their early years were good. Genuinely good. They traveled when they could. They argued sometimes, the way all couples do, mostly about small things. Who forgot to call the plumber? Whether they were saving enough. Normal friction. Nothing that felt like a warning sign. Petra left her sales job about 3 years into the marriage. She told Callum that travel was wearing her out and she wanted to try something different. She started doing freelance consulting work, she said. Helping small healthcare companies with compliance documentation. The hours were flexible. The pay, she told him, was inconsistent but decent. Callum didn't question it much. He was deep into a major highway project at the time, working long hours. He trusted her. That was the foundation they had built, or the foundation he thought they had built. But looking back, the signs were there. Small ones. Easy to explain away. Petra's phone was always face down. She said it was a habit. She sometimes stepped outside to take calls, telling him it was a client who needed privacy. There were weeks where she seemed distracted, and then weeks where she was almost too attentive, as if she was compensating for something. Once, Callum noticed a second email account open on her laptop. When he asked about it, she said it was for a specific client project and closed the tab calmly. No hesitation. No visible discomfort. That was the thing about Petra. She never panicked. Whatever was happening inside her, she kept it behind a wall that Callum could never quite see over. He told himself he was overthinking. He reminded himself that he trusted her. He went back to work, back to his projects, back to the life they had built together. And for a while that was enough. What would you have done in Callum's position? When small things feel off but nothing is provably wrong, do you speak up or do you let it go? It's a question most people in long relationships have faced at least once. The answer Callum chose was silence. And that silence gave Petra 4 more years. The officers left that evening with Petra's laptop and 2 boxes of documents from the home office. They were professional about it. Quiet. They handed Callum a receipt for everything they took as if that made it easier. Petra spent most of that night on the phone with a lawyer. She slept in the guest room. Callum didn't ask her to. She just went there and he didn't stop her. He sat in the bedroom they had shared for 5 years and stared at the ceiling. He wasn't angry yet. Anger would come later. Right now he was just trying to load the information, the way a computer struggles with a file that's too large for the system. $380,000. 4 years. Shell companies. He kept turning those words over. Trying to fit them onto the woman who made coffee every morning and remembered his mother's birthday and cried at nature documentaries. It didn't fit. And yet the folder had existed. The detective had not flinched when she said it. The next morning, Callum did something he had never done in 8 years together. He went through Petra's things. Not aggressively. Methodically. The way he approached everything. He started with the home office, the parts the police hadn't taken. There wasn't much left. But what he found was enough. A prepaid debit card tucked inside an old planner. A handwritten list of names he didn't recognize with dollar amounts next to each one. A burner phone, cheap, basic, in the back of a filing cabinet drawer behind a stack of tax folders. The burner phone was locked. But the prepaid card had a balance printed on a small slip of paper clipped to it. $4,200. Spending money separate from everything else. Callum sat on the office floor for a long time. He started thinking back. Really thinking. Not with the generous eye of a husband who wanted to believe the best, but with the clear eye of someone finally willing to look. The freelance consulting work that started almost immediately after she left her job. The vague explanations about clients. The flexible hours that somehow never produced a single invoice he had ever seen. He had never seen an invoice. Not once. He had assumed she kept her business finances separate and respected that boundary. Now he understood the boundary had been a wall, and the wall had been deliberate. There were the trips too. Short ones. A few days at a time. Client meetings in other cities, she had said. He had never questioned the destinations. Never looked at a receipt. He had trusted her and she had known he would. Think about that for a moment. How much space do we give the people we love? How much do we choose not to see because seeing it would cost us something? Callum wasn't naive. He was trusting. There's a difference. But the result, he was learning, can look exactly the same from the outside. He called his brother Noel that afternoon. Didn't explain everything. Just said things were bad and he needed someone to talk to. Noel drove over without asking questions. That's the kind of brother he was. They sat on the back porch while Petra stayed inside, still on calls with her lawyer. Callum told Noel what the police had said. Noel listened without interrupting, which was hard for him because Noel was not naturally a quiet man. When Callum finished, Noel was silent for a moment. Then he said, "How are you doing?" Not "what are you going to do?" Not "I can't believe her." Just, "How are you doing?" Callum said he didn't know yet. And that was the most honest thing he had said in days. 3 days after the police visit, Detective Ford called Callum directly. She asked if he could come into the station. Not as a suspect. As someone they believed had been affected by the case. She used that word carefully, affected. Callum would understand why later. He went alone. Noel offered to come but Callum said no. This was something he needed to hear without someone next to him watching his face. Detective Ford met him in a small conference room. She had a file in front of her, thicker than the one she had placed on his kitchen table. She offered him water. He took it, mostly just to have something to hold. She began by explaining the scope of the investigation. The fraud network had been operating for nearly 5 years. It wasn't a small operation. There were multiple people involved across 3 states. Petra had not been a minor participant. She had been one of the primary architects of the billing structure, the person who designed how the fake consultations were documented and filed to avoid triggering insurance audits. Callum absorbed that. His wife hadn't stumbled into something. She had built it. But that wasn't the part that took the floor out from under him. Detective Ford paused, then continued. During the investigation, they had pulled phone records, financial records, and private communications going back 4 years. In doing so, they had uncovered something beyond the fraud. Petra had been in a relationship with one of her co-conspirators, a man named Drexton Okafor, who operated one of the shell companies out of a rented office space in Indianapolis. The relationship had been going on for 3 years. Callum didn't say anything. He looked at the table. Detective Ford gave him a moment and then kept going because the full picture was what he needed, even if it was the last thing he wanted. Drexton Okafor was not just a business partner and not just an affair. He was, according to communications recovered from Petra's devices, someone she had been planning a future with. There were messages about timelines, about when she would leave, about accounts that had been set aside. Petra had been building an exit, quietly, carefully, over years, while living inside the marriage with Callum. The money wasn't just fraud. It was her foundation for a different life. She hadn't been stolen from him by impulse or weakness. She had been leaving in slow motion, one careful step at a time, and she had funded every step with stolen money. Callum set the cup of water down. He asked Detective Ford one question. Did she ever intend to tell me? Ford looked at him evenly. Based on what we recovered, no. The plan, as far as we can tell, was to disappear cleanly once the accounts reached a certain threshold. Disappear cleanly. Like a line item closed out. Like a project wrapped up. Callum had spent his career building structures designed to hold weight, designed to last. He understood load-bearing elements. He understood what happens when a foundation is compromised from the inside, slowly, invisibly, until the day it simply gives way. He understood it professionally. He had never expected to understand it personally. He thanked Detective Ford. He shook her hand. He walked out to his car, sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes and then drove home. Petra was in the kitchen when he arrived. She looked up when he walked in. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then Callum said, "I know everything." Petra didn't deny it. She didn't perform confusion or outrage. She just nodded slowly, like someone who had known this moment was coming and had run out of ways to delay it. That nod, Callum said later, was the most honest thing she had done in years. How do you process the fact that someone planned to vanish from your life while standing next to you every day? That the person across the breakfast table was already mentally somewhere else, building a life you were never meant to know about? There are no good answers to that. Only the slow work of accepting what was real and what wasn't. Petra was formally charged 6 weeks later. Wire fraud, insurance fraud, conspiracy. Drexton Okafor was charged alongside her. The case was federal, which meant the process was slow and the consequences were serious. Her lawyer negotiated a plea agreement. She accepted it. 18 months in a federal facility, 5 years probation, and full restitution of the fraudulent billings. Callum was not in the courtroom when she entered her plea. He had considered going. In the end he decided there was nothing there he needed to see. He had already seen enough. The divorce was filed before the plea was entered. Petra didn't contest it. There wasn't much to contest. The accounts tied to the fraud were frozen. The assets they had built together were split through a process that was, by legal standards, straightforward. By human standards, it was the quiet dismantling of something Callum had believed in completely. He kept the house initially. Then decided he didn't want it. Too many rooms that felt like they belonged to a different version of his life. He sold it 8 months after the police first knocked on his door and moved into an apartment closer to the city. Smaller. Simpler. He said it felt like breathing room. Noelle checked on him regularly. So did a few close friends who had known them as a couple and chose, without drama, to remain in Callum's corner. He was grateful for that. Grief is easier when it isn't lonely, even when the grief is complicated, even when what you're mourning never fully existed the way you thought it did. That was the hardest part for Callum to work through. Not the betrayal alone. Not even the affair. It was the question of what had been real. He found himself auditing memories the way an accountant audits records, looking for what was genuine and what was performance. The early years felt real. He chose to believe they were. But he also accepted that he might never know for certain where the truth ended and the strategy began. That uncertainty, he said, was something he had to learn to carry without letting it poison everything. He started seeing a therapist about 2 months after the divorce was finalized. Not because he was falling apart, but because he was smart enough to know that some weight needs a professional to help you set it down properly. Slowly things shifted. He took on a new project at work, a large pedestrian bridge in a riverside development outside the city. He threw himself into it the way he always had, methodically, patiently. There was something grounding about the work. About designing something meant to hold, meant to connect, meant to last. About a year after everything, a colleague introduced him to a woman named Solène, a landscape architect who worked on public spaces. They had coffee once, then again. Nothing rushed. Nothing performed. Just two people being straightforward with each other, which was something Callum had learned to value in a way he hadn't before. He wasn't rebuilt overnight. That's not how it works. But he was moving forward, which is the only direction that matters after something like this. As for Petra, she served her sentence. She and Drexton did not stay together. Whatever they had built in secret did not survive the exposure to daylight, which perhaps says something about foundations built on concealment. Callum heard that through mutual acquaintances. He didn't seek the information out. It arrived the way information does in small networks of people, quietly and without invitation. He noted it and moved on. Because that was the lesson, if there was one to extract from all of it. Not that people are fundamentally untrustworthy. Not that love is a trap. But that you cannot build something real on top of something hidden. Eventually the weight of what's concealed becomes greater than what's visible. And when it gives way completely. Callum knew that better than most. He built bridges for a living. He understood load and structure and the slow accumulation of stress on a compromised joint. He just never expected to learn the lesson at his own kitchen table. So here is the question this story leaves behind, and it's worth sitting with. If someone you loved was quietly building a life without you, would you want to know? Even if knowing meant losing everything you thought you had? Most people say yes. But knowing and being ready are two very different things. Callum wasn't ready. He was just honest enough, once the truth arrived, to face it without looking away. And in the end, that was what saved him. If this story moved you or made you think, leave a comment below. Tell us what you took from it. Tell us what you would have done differently. And if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like this one, human, real, and worth your time.